What is going on today, guys? Welcome back to the channel and today's video. We are officially in the off season of Florida drifting, which is ever becoming more and more of a real off season due to some track closures, but nonetheless we are still getting the FRS better and better. It proved itself pretty much all year long on drift events on the current turbo setup, but I'd be lying if I said it's perfect and if I said there's nothing I want to change. So today we're going to be getting started on quite a decently big setup change for this car, or at least in terms of packaging, how it all sits and how it all flows together. So let me show you real quick. Long time ago, when we first got this turbo kit kind of situated, we created a mount with brake bank, or I should say brake bank created me a mount for the oil cooler, which is right off the intercooler. Now, we mostly did this for practicality. The Jackson Racing oil cooler did sit around that region already, so I knew the lines were fine. And then on top of that, it was just the fastest way between point A to B and getting the car back on track. But some of the detriments to running your oil cooler right in front of the other radiators is just that. There are quite a few other airfoils that need to have air pass through them. So when I have the oil cooler here and it starts actually putting in work, cooling the oil, it's passing heat directly into the intercooler, passing heat directly into the AC condenser, passing heat directly into the radiator. So effectively creating somewhat of a hot spot in the intercooler. So although I never really noticed anything drastic, like the car doesn't run bad, I don't see extreme excessive IATs, that setup still isn't necessarily the most efficient nor the best for intake air temperatures, as I've said. So I've seen on quite a few cars, quite a few FD cars, drift cars, etc., something a lot of people do is they stack the coolers on top of other items. That way you can somewhat reduce how many stacks that you have. I went ahead and took the Jackson Racing mount, or what's left of it, cut it up and placed it onto bars very similar to the bars that brake bank put in for me. Then, as you can see here, I just welded the conglomerate of metal to attach it all together, so that this piece now, which is the upper support for the intercooler, is also the basis or the tray for the oil cooler. Now, I technically could run the lines that are on here, but let me show you something first, and it's probably a really good thing that I stopped driving the car when I did, because it's a little bit frightening. So if you recall, these are the Jackson Racing lines. This is their oil cooler kit, and it wasn't used exactly how they intended, being that I have a aftermarket bash bar, and I routed the lines just a little bit different than they would probably recommend. So spot number one here, oof. This was chafing somewhere on my windshield washer reservoir. So since then, I no longer have a stock reservoir. I actually run the Chase Bays one, this tiny little unit here. So that problem was solved. Then I got all creative, routed the lines in a whole new spot again through the bash bar area, and lo and behold, starting to chafe again in a whole different area. So I think this was actually on the AC line, the metal piece right there, the AC line. And you can see some other areas where this hose was just getting beat up because of the way I was routing it. If you had an OEM setup and you installed it per Jackson Racing, this thing would have no issues. It just happens to be that the way I was doing it definitely abused the hose quite a lot. So that is the gist of what is going on at this moment and where we're starting today. We are going to be making brand new lines for the oil cooler kit for its new position. So I got a bunch of really cool, nifty pieces and parts to really dress up these lines, and more importantly, kind of make them bulletproof. So I'm going to show you where I am, and we're just going to start the process now of making some new lines and finishing up this oil cooler setup. So first things first, we're going to bust open this old line It just so happens a 27mm wrench fits these orb fittings pretty well, and these are pretty much Setrab proprietary fittings, I think, in a sense. Their own design. Oh man, this is about to be a mess. There it goes. That's why we gotta drop in. I'm gonna show you guys the fitting I got for this, and we're gonna plug that hole essentially with it right now. So this is a Setrab fitting. Like I said, somewhat proprietary. They have an O-ring, it's M22, fits the oil cooler exactly. So this actually works out pretty well. Get some oil on that O-ring, get it lubed up. And these are actually swivel fittings as well. So they're super nice like that, you can move them around exactly how you want. So now we are all set up on this end to measure our first line and get cracking. So I somewhat cheated, and I did already make the first line. This is a 150-degree line. You might have also noticed this is stainless steel braided line. You could do nylon. Nylon, you're going to run into the same issue that this previous line had, and that's it doesn't do well with chafing, whereas stainless steel is stainless steel. It's pretty rugged stuff. I'll somewhat talk through it here, but the whole idea of the new system is going to be get it through in between the radiator and this core support. Somewhat, I don't know if it's core support, crash support kind of thing. And I'm just gonna get it kind of draped in here. That way I can just connect it up top. Yep, so it's gonna go just like that. These little caps I got off of Amazon, they're just like plumber's caps, I think, something like that. Yeah, they fit on your AN lines. They make doing stuff like this a little bit easier, a little less nerve-wracking leaving ports open. I ended up getting some of these lines off of Finish Line Factory, pretty cool local shop. Me and Treadstone are still homies, so don't get it twisted. I just wanted to take advantage of one of my friend's discount codes and support him a little bit, you know? Support his drift program, in a sense. So we're all hooked up here, not going super tight, just enough so I can see where everything's gonna lay out. Now is kind of the hard part here of routing a huge hose where you need it to go. Now the way I typically do this, once I got my length pretty good and I'm pretty happy with where everything is sitting, right around there, you want to take into account how far your line is going to go up to your collar. It goes up to this collar pretty far. I'd say around here. Let me actually just show you. And I am very impressed with these Setrab lines. They are so nice. Just the way this fitting is machined. They took a few extra steps, and although some people might see it as unnecessary, it's a beautiful looking piece. So if you see in there, there's almost like a little stop. There's some huge threads, really big threads you see. That's to help you get the line inside. And the small threads are where the AN line, or the AN fitting, starts. So you just want to account for that distance there. I would say the threads are pretty much right where this machine line is. So I can use that as my reference mark. So let me put this back on. Orient it how it's going to be. So it's going to be something like that, so it can go join the other line. And if you tie it up here, just get it close. We're gonna go ahead and make a decision. So I would say right there. Yep, that's gonna be our first line. Now there is roughly 1,026 ways of skinning a cat, but I'm just going to show you the way that I do it. I use cable cutters, bolt cutters. Yeah, I got this a while ago, and I think it pays off very quickly, as I have never had to redo a fitting, and I think it's mostly due to clean cuts from this thing. So what I try to do is find the middle of the blades, put that on your mark, and slowly start, and then chomp. Alright. If it doesn't get it all the way right away, don't worry. Do yourself a favor, get a pair of these, not just for end lines, but for everything, because this thing cuts literally anything you could throw at it. What I'm going to do is just very carefully trim, get it the rest of the way. There we go. You can see too, I'm using the AN block to somewhat hold the line. Just a little bit loose, not too rough with it. You can see, not a horrible cut. There is a decent amount of fraying there, which I don't think is that bad compared to some other methods. So I'm just going to clean this up real quick with these little snips, and then we'll start making our first line here together. So now that we made our cut, very first thing is we're going to get this collar on. Like I said, there's already kind of somewhat threads that most companies build into these. So if you get it on, you can go left instead of right, and it will slowly somewhat help you get the line up to that first collar. Just a little bit more. You see up there, we are very close. Let me see if I can zoom in on it. Very close. Just wedge it a little bit more so you get the rubber as far as it can go before it stops on essentially like a ledge. Yep, so that's looking pretty good. So hopefully you can see the little bit of hose poking out there, right up against that flange for the threads. Every single time without fail, well, except for maybe a couple times, I always tape where the line was when it was butted up against that collar. Now this won't come into play just yet, but for now we need to go ahead and get it on there. So we'll just get it just barely tight in there, just enough to somewhat support it. Now what we're going to do with our other hand is grab it by the bottom, and with these two supports now we're going to be preventing the hose from pushing down, essentially while we're threading this in, preventing it from pushing itself out, which I gotta admit, modern fittings with those kind of threads, the big threads, I have yet to have one back out, but you know, fingers crossed. So now one more thing I always do without fail, get you some silicone lubricant. 1 can of this stuff will last you for years. Get some of that lube on your fitting. Not too much, you don't need that much. Silicone lube goes a long way, but it works really well for hoses. Let's just try to get it. There we go. Let's get it up to that first one. Just get it to slip in and get your first few threads in. This part is pretty crucial that you seat it pretty well. Alright, now that we're pretty much at the point, can't really do it by hand. Go ahead, take it back out. Now, I'm just going to check. Yep, didn't move. Now we can put it into our fitting, or use the fitting vise traditionally. What I like to do is have it a little bit above That way you can wrench it all the way down. Get it tight in there, but once again, everything is aluminum, so not too tight. I still keep pressure while I turn, because you're not guaranteed that it's going to stay exactly where it is. So while you're threading this in, I think good practice, just keep a hold of the hose. If anything, just so you feel if it is backing itself out. You want to know when it's about to tighten all the way. It is very close to sealing up there. Maybe I can get that one. One more turn, maybe. Maybe one more turn. Essentially what you want to try to avoid is doing what I just did, but it's too late now. Yep, she's sitting where she is. So if you want to be perfect, try to line those up, your hex with your hex, because otherwise you get a somewhat ugly fitting like I did there, but you know, it's not the end of the world. Now for our final test here, the whole reason why we got the tape, you just want to double check, make sure that the hose was not pushing itself out, which in this case you can see it wasn't, stayed exactly where I taped it up. So this line is all set now. So if you've never worked with these oil cooler fittings, my best advice, do this line first, the one that screws into the oil filter. That way you can manipulate the line and get it threaded in, because if you leave this for last, it's super awkward trying to get it threaded in with a wrench. So what I typically do is try to get it started by hand with the entire line. If you can just get that first thread in, then you're golden. I think we're in. Yep. Just gonna get that tight enough to manipulate it. Get it under this line. You also might have noticed, added this heat wrap stuff to it. That is also from Finish Line Factory. Fits it pretty nice, and I figured if we're gonna be rubbing on anything, or if I can eliminate some heat, it would be good. So let's go ahead now. And voila freaking la, we are there. Boom. Plenty of room to spare. Yeah. Hell yeah. It's kind of tucking with an AC line, which I'm okay with. So for this next fitting, I got a pretty special one, even more special than that last one. It is another Setrab fitting, and this one is a banjo AN fitting. So it's a 10 AN on one side, so just fits normal 10 AN fittings, which all these are, by the way. And then on the other side, it's that same oil cooler fitting with an O-ring. So pretty sweet, pretty nifty. I'll undo it here. Get a little bit of oil all the same. Come on, give me a little drip. One more drip. One more drip. Alright, there we go. Boom. So you might have noticed too that I have this angled piece. The whole reason why I went with a different fitting here than this one is I really need to follow this line shooting down. That way there's enough room here for an intake still. So if you notice, once I get this on, it is very close to matching that same angle. and hopefully it will allow us to shoot that line down with this one, and then boom, out of the way. So hopefully a filter can sit pretty much right here. Alright guys, that is pretty much going to wrap up this video, our little quasi tutorial on AN lines, or at least how I've used them thus far. I've really only used them for oil lines, but I think it is super important that you bulletproof specifically your oil lines. My oil return line is stainless steel braided. Now the oil cooler is also stainless steel braided, and I just feel much more comfortable about this whole situation. Not to mention kind of the benefits we're going to see, hopefully, of having this new setup, the new stack, the new way it all lays out. But we're going to have to see that in the future. So really hope you guys enjoyed the video, and as always, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. And just wanted to give somewhat a special message, since we are getting ever so close to that 1,000 subscriber mark. That just wanted to put out there. I really appreciate you guys, all the support over the past couple of years. It's been really fun kind of learning, growing with this channel as it moves on, and the experiences have been no doubt priceless, as we've built this car from essentially a stock harmless little FRS, and now it just turns every day more and more into a little beast. And it's been really fun, and just wanted to throw it out there that I'm extremely thankful for you guys, and hope you have a great holiday, whether it's Christmas, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah. This might be the last video of the year. We shall see on timing. My professional life has gotten ever busier and busier, unfortunately, in the past year or so. So if you don't see a video before New Year's, I hope you have a really great one, and I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of you in 2023, and hopefully seeing a lot of you on track with me. That would be my Christmas wish, I guess, or New Year's wish for everybody. Get out there, have some fun, and let's get after it while we can enjoy these tracks while they're here. All right, catch you guys on the next one. Peace.